the Indus University logo, it says something interesting. It says Jnanena Prakashate Jagata. So revealing true knowledge is really important. That helps us remove the darkness. And darkness does not mean the physical darkness, lack of light, but it means lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. Many times, unfortunately, what happens is we look at our scriptures as ritualistic books. They just talk about some yajna or some rituals, some puja, some worships, and we think, okay, the use of those scriptures is limited to those activities, and we ignore those. Those are in Sanskrit, so sometimes it is difficult to understand, but very few attempts are made to understand the real knowledge, the real information which is there in our scriptures or in even in our rituals, the true scientific and practical meanings or reasons behind various scriptures and rituals. Purusha Sukta is one of the suktas in Vedic literature. This is only sukta that appears in all four Veds. In some minor variations are there, but this is the only sukta which is in every single Ved. That led me think that it must be that important. That is why it is in every Veda. And many of us may not know, but lot of rituals that we do, lot of Shodashopachar Puja and other things that we do, those are based on Purusha Sukta. Some are based on Shri Sukta, but most of those are based on Purusha Sukta. So it is really important. It is followed in rituals also. It appears in every Veda also. So there must be something really, really important. So the first mantra is Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sa Bhumim Vishvato Vrutva Atyatishthad Dashangulam. So there is a being, there is a Purusha who has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, thousands of legs. He covers entire universe and extends beyond the universe by 10 inches. That is the literal meaning. Now, a lot of questions come. When people interpret this mantra, they try to interpret it in, as I said, spiritual or religious aspect. We are going to interpret it in scientific aspect. So Purusha Sukta chanting is throughout the puja, throughout the ritual. And there are two different ways people chant the entire Sukta. Or in Shodashopachar Puja, the Sukta has 16 mantras. So in every 16 of those steps in a puja, each mantra is used, one for each step. And the other thing, if I go back, the 13th mantra talks about Brahman and Mukha, arms and Kshatriya and so on. But then it continues, it doesn't stop here. If it was Chaturvarnya, then it would stop here. 4 varnas are described as 4 different body parts. It continues about mind, eyes, the Mukha again, then the breathing or the nose, then it talks about Nabhi, then it talks about the head, then it talks about legs. And so it is not just talking about the society classification.
Namaste and welcome to another session of Indic Talks organized by the Center for Indic Studies in this university. Today we have our speaker with us, Parag Bhalerao Ji, who is going to help us demystify Purusha Sukta and talk about the creation of the universe through the Purusha Sukta. Parag Bhalerao Ji was born and raised in Pune, India. He currently lives in the US of A, working in the IT industry. Parag Ji holds a master's degree in science and MBA in HR and marketing. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to take over from here.
Thank you. Good evening. Appreciate that warm welcome here. So, Ojasvi, as you said, we are going to talk about Purusha Sukta. But before we get into the topic, the Indus University logo, it says something interesting. It says, Jnanena prakashate jagata. So revealing true knowledge is really important. That helps us remove the darkness. And darkness does not mean the physical darkness, lack of light, but it means lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, or ignorance. And today's session is going to be one such attempt to help us understand some of our scriptures, some of our knowledge system that we follow, how powerful it is and how practical it is. Many times, unfortunately, what happens is we look at our scriptures as ritualistic books. They just talk about some yajna or some rituals, some puja, some worships, and we think, okay, the use of those scriptures is limited to those activities, and we ignore those. Those are in Sanskrit, so sometimes it is difficult to understand, but very few attempts are made to understand the real knowledge, the real information which is there in our scriptures or in even in our rituals, the true scientific and practical meanings or reasons behind various scriptures and rituals. So we are just going to discuss one of such scriptures or parts of the scriptures in today's discussion. That part that we are going to discuss is called Purusha Sukta. Purusha Sukta is one of the suktas in Vedic literature. This is only sukta that appears in all four Veds. In some minor variations are there, but this is the only sukta which is in every single Ved. That led me think that it must be that important. That is why it is in every Veda. And many of us may not know, but lot of rituals that we do, lot of Shodashopachar Puja and other things that we do, those are based on Purusha Sukta. Some are based on Shri Sukta, but most of those are based on Purusha Sukta. So it is really important. It is followed in rituals also. It appears in every Veda also. So there must be something really, really important. Everybody admits that Purusha Sukta talks about creation of the universe. Now, in today's discussion, we are going to use the word creation. But in our belief system, we believe that this is not really a creation, it is manifestation. It's not something that got created. It was already there. It manifested. It appeared in some specific form that we perceive today or through our senses, right? But for the sake of simplicity, we will continue to say creation. Okay. So even though everybody accepts that it is describing creation of universe, there are very, very, very few books or YouTube talks or discussions that clearly describe this creation of universe aspect. Most explanations, most discussions, most literature goes into more of a religious aspect or philosophical aspect, not touch much on scientific aspect. So that is what we are going to do today. We are going to explore the scientific approach or scientific aspects of Purusha Sukta. Now, first important thing I mentioned that in our scriptures, if you trace the roots go back to Ved. Yes, we follow different scriptures. Many of us follow Bhagavad Gita. Some people might say, oh, I don't follow Bhagavad Gita. They might be following something else. But if you trace the roots, Bhagavad Gita's roots are in other Vedantic literature and Upanishads. And of course, Upanishads are based on Vedic knowledge system or Ved. So what is Ved? The word Ved comes from root word Vid. Vid means to know, and Veda means knowledge. So the books that we blindly assume to be ritualistic, religious books, the name itself says that these are books of knowledge. All kinds of knowledge, you will be surprised, all kinds of knowledge is very clearly documented in details in Vedic literature. It is absolutely amazing. The other thing that comes to mind is if Veds are our roots of our knowledge system, our scriptures, our dharma. Who wrote Veds and when were those written? Now, unfortunately, in the Vedic literature itself, there is no clear mention of the time frame when the Veds are written. But different people have taken different references within Vedic literature, different contexts, different archaeological or astronomical references, so on and so forth, and tried to estimate when these Veds were written. Of course, every scholar has different mechanism and their dating is little different, but typically the dating that I have followed, it goes back to 24,000 BCE. So it is that ancient. And obviously, being that ancient, over a period of time, there were a lot of changes in the interpretation and followings of the Vedic knowledge. Secondly, who wrote Veda? So Veds are assumed to be apaurushaya, means not man-made or not written by men or people or humans. What does that mean? If those are not written by humans, where did they come from? So that aspect is the rishis who we don't say wrote, but who revealed this Vedic knowledge or Vedic hymns or Vedic mantras. They were extremely scholar and extremely talented. They did not take any credit. They just said that somebody sent it to me and I'm just revealing it to the world. I just realized those. I just heard those in my meditative state, in dhyana avastha. I just heard those. So I just reproduce what I heard. So it's not my creation, my writing as such. It just came out through me. So they did not take any credit. Lot of sections in Vedic literature, those rishis are mentioned who revealed those Vedas, but those are not said to be authors of the Vedic literature. Those are just, they call it as drashta rishi, the rishi who gained that knowledge and reproduced it for other people. Today we will focus, as I said, is mostly on Purusha Sukta. We talked about a little bit about Purusha Sukta. Now, what is Sukta? Sukta is collection of mantras. Mantra is not shlok. Shlok is different. Mantra is different. But all the Vedic literature, it is all mantras. And again, in mantras, there are different names for different ways. But Sukta is basically collection of mantra, just like stotra or stuti mantra and so on and so forth. This is just a collection of few mantras. And what is Purusha? Now, this word Purusha many times creates confusion. People who want to critique or criticize our belief system, they start arguing that, see, your culture just gives importance to Purusha and not to Stri. So it is a male-dominant society, so on and so forth. A lot of people say a lot of different things. They don't even understand that the word Purusha used in Vedic literature has nothing to do with gender. It is not about men or male or not about even human or not about any living being at all. Purusha traditionally is interpreted as Puri Shayanath. So what is Puri and what is Shayanath or Puri Shete? Puri is any definable space. So in India, you have seen a lot of towns, lot of villages, lot of cities are named as something Puri. Right? So Puri is basically a defined space, defined location. But it is not it is in general not true that it is only a place. It is any definable place. So those who have studied Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan calls human body as a Puri. It's a definable space, right? So it is a Puri. In the context of Purusha Sukta, the entire universe is a Puri. And Shayana indicates sleep. So the one who sleeps in entire city, in entire universe is Purusha. So that power, that energy, that Shakti is called Purusha. The important thing to notice here is in Sanskrit, or many other Indian languages, there are two alphabets that sound similar. One is sh and one is sh. The sh used in shayana or shete is a different sh, and that is not the sh used in Purusha. The sh used in Purusha is sh that goes in Krishna. So if you take right sh, then it is not shayana, then it is usha. Pura ushayati. The one, usha is what? Usha is the early part of the day, early morning, right? So that time we start, or the earth starts receiving light, and the entire earth energizes, comes to life, so on and so forth. So in the context of Purusha, the energy that energizes the entire universe is Purusha. So it is talking about a Shakti or a power or a energy, nothing to do with male or female or humans or animals, anything at all. The other important thing is, in Vedic literature, there are a lot of yajna. What is yajna? Traditionally, we think of yajna as the fire altar. The fire is lit and the offerings are made and so on and so forth. In general, any process is called yajna. Any process where you offer something, perform the process and get some different output, that process is called yajna. So here, the Purusha Sukta describes the creation as a yajna. It is a yajna through which universe manifested. So again, a lot of confusion that if it was yajna, who performed the yajna? If the universe was not created, then who lit the fire, who made offerings, so on and so forth. So just to avoid that confusion, it's important to understand that yajna is just a process, not necessarily the fire and altars and offerings and things like that. So with that, we'll get into the first mantra of Purusha Sukta. We'll see the words little bit traditional meaning, and then we'll understand the real meaning in the context of creation of the universe. So the first mantra is Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sa Bhumim Vishwato Vrutva Atyatishthad Dashangulam. So there is a being, there is a Purusha who has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, thousands of legs. He covers entire universe and extends beyond the universe by 10 inches. That is the literal meaning. Now, a lot of questions come. When people interpret this mantra, they try to interpret it in, as I said, spiritual or religious aspect. We are going to interpret it in scientific aspect. So how can there be a person with thousands of heads? First of all, even if it says Sahasra, it does not mean exact thousand. It means large number. So countless, infinite number of heads. Secondly, if it has 1,000 heads, how can it have 1,000 eyes and 1,000 legs? Then it should have 2,000 eyes and 2,000 legs, right? So again, here 1,000 does not mean, Sahasra does not mean 1,000. It means countless or large number or infinite. Now, who is this creature that has 1,000 heads? It's like a monster, right? If you have so many heads. So if we really understand, this mantra relates to and describes the situation right at the time when the process of creation of the universe started. In modern theories of creation of the universe, there is a most popular theory called Big Bang theory. What does Big Bang say? That there was a big, massive explosion through which the entire universe was created. When that explosion happened, what was the situation? If somebody was to see that with naked eyes, what would it look like? It would look like just a burst of a firecracker, right? That is described here. So Sahasra Shirsha means there are thousands of individual objects. Shirsha, literally it means head, but it also indicates uniqueness or individuality, right? So, in today's session, for example, we'll say, oh, there were, 1,000 heads or 20 heads joined this session. Or when we talk about charges, we say per head something. So that per head indicates individuality or uniqueness. So in same context, what it is describing is there were distinct, unique, individual thousands of objects got created. Now, even if we are simplicity saying it is object, it is not like a tiny object. These are gigantic objects. The diameter of these objects were few light years. Those were huge, right? But what is described here is those are thousands of distinct, unique, separate objects from each other. Then it says it is describing qualities of those objects. Those were unique, distinct, individual. Then eyes, thousands of eyes. What do eyes indicate? Eyes indicate shine, luster, glow. Those are the attributes described through eye. So what it is saying is all these objects, these gigantic, unique objects, those were glowing. Those were shining, bright objects. Obviously, if you imagine something coming out of explosion, like different sparks, for example, those are going to be shiny, bright, luminous kind of objects. So it is describing when these objects were created, those were shining, glowing objects. And then the third attribute is Sahasra Pada. Pada is Pada or legs. What do legs indicate? Legs indicate motion or movement. Obviously, since these objects were created from an explosion, those were in motion. Those were moving. Those were moving away from the explosion. And even today's theory about universe, it talks about theory of expanding universe, which means the universe is constantly expanding. Everything, all the galaxies and all the objects within the universe, they are going away from each other. The entire universe is expanding. So the same concept is very clearly described here. The other important thing it describes is Sabhumim Vishwato Vrutva. It is covering the entire universe and extending beyond that universe by 10 fingers, 10 angula, or 10 inches for the sake of simplicity. Now, what does this mean? If the universe was created, manifested by this energy, by this Purusha, where did he create that? For creating anything, we need space. And the space always has to be bigger than the creation. Right? If I'm building a table in a room, the room has to be bigger than the table. I cannot build a table bigger than the room inside a room. So when this universe got created, there should be something which is bigger than universe, in which the universe got created. So this Purusha itself became the space. Now, space is a different concept that we interpret or understand today, that the space also got created as a part of universe, but for the sake of simplicity, we are using the word space. So the Purusha himself is provided that space within himself, and he created this universe there. Obviously, since the universe was created in that space within that Purusha, the Purusha was covering that entire, or is covering that entire universe, and it is bigger than the universe. It has to be, as we just talked about. Now, who went and measured that he is bigger than the universe by 10 inches? So it is that, again, 10, the word dasha here does not mean 10. It again means infinite. In our decimal number system, there are digits 0 to 9. Whatever cannot be explained in those digits is infinite. So that is what the 10 indicates infinite here. So it is infinitely extended beyond the known or perceivable universe. That is what this first mantra explains. Then it continues saying, Purusha evedagam sarvam yat bhutai yaccha bhavyam utamritatvaseshana yadanne nati rohati. So whatever we see, whatever exists, everything is this Purusha itself, manifested in different forms. The trees, the people, the earth, the moon, the stars, the sun, the galaxies, everything is nothing but this Purusha existed or manifested in different forms. That is what everything what we see today is Purusha. Not just that, whatever was there in the past, Bhuta, was also Purusha, and whatever will appear in future, Bhavyam, is also nothing but the Purusha himself. It is just changing the forms. Now, this again relates to one of the modern scientific theories, which is theory of conservation of mass and energy. Right? We know that the energy or mass cannot be created or destroyed, but it can change forms. Same thing is described here. This Purusha itself is there, it just changes its forms, and we perceive it in different forms at different times. But whatever was there is nothing but the Purusha itself. And in that context of conservation, the Purusha is Amruta. Amruta is immortal. It never got created, it will never be destroyed. And we use this concept of not born and not ever die concept for, in general, for Parameshwar in many of our scriptures and many of our descriptions or glories about the God. Okay, so this is describing about that immortality in that aspect. And the last word is again important. Yadanne nati rohati. It means it provides food for this universe to grow. Now, who is this Purusha? What food is it providing? To who is it providing that food, and who is eating that food? So again, this food is nothing but the substance that is required for sustenance and growth. Any creature, for it to exist, sustain and grow, it needs food. Now, what is food? Food is different for different species, right? For us, it is rice and roti and whatever, right? But for different species, food is different. For this universe, this food is nothing but the energy that is created or that is required for this universe to sustain and grow. The modern science says that yes, there is some energy that helps in growth of the universe. We don't know what it is, so they call it as dark energy. That dark energy is described here as a food that the Purusha, that this supreme energy, provides the universe for its growth and sustenance. We'll skip few mantras in the interest of time. Okay, this sixth mantra says, in this yajna that was initiated, that was started, that was performed by Deva, what happened? These different seasons were offered in that yajna. Now again, this becomes confusion. How can seasons, how can somebody capture a season and offer it in the yajna? Now, two important things we saw already, that yajna is a process. But still, even if the process, how can I use seasons as part of that process? Season is not a physical entity that I can grab and offer, right? So what it says is, Vasanto asya sidajam Grishma idma sharad havehi. So basically, he says that Vasanta, Grishma, and Sharada, these three Rutus, these three seasons were used in this yajna. Again, what it means is, when the universe was being created, the Purusha introduced these three aspects. What are these three aspects? The first it says is Vasanta. What is Vasanta? Vasanta is a season when new flowers bloom, the entire, entire tree or entire forest, it appears as if it is come to the life. Looks beautiful, right? All the new leaves appear on the trees, all the new flowers, beautiful. So that indicates the creation aspect. So it introduced a mechanism which will have creation. Then Grishma is where we receive maximum energy. It's the summer where we receive a lot of energy. and lot of trees, lot of things grow very rapidly in the summer. So summer indicates sustenance and growth aspect. And in Sharad Rutu is kind of dissolution, right? The crop is ready for the next cycle, for the next sowing or whatever, right? We get a lot of fruits and the seeds and all that. So it indicates a situation, a avastha where a new generation, new creation is now possible. So the Purusha knew that whatever I'm creating, it cannot be permanent. It cannot be permanent in that stage, in that avastha, in that shape. So it has to be created, it has to be maintained, it has to grow, and at some point, it has to lead to the next generation. So that aspect of traditionally what we call it as Utpatti, Sthiti, and Laya, that is indicated that mechanism was introduced while creating the universe itself. That is what is indicated in this mantra. Now, in seventh mantra, it goes more towards earth. It now narrows down from the entire earth to, entire universe to earth. And on this earth, it says, Saptasyasan paridhayaha trisapta samidha krutaha deva yad yajnyantanvanaha abadnan purusham pashum. I'll just, again, in the interest of time, introduce few important concepts here. When the earth was being formed, paridhi is boundaries. So it created 7 boundaries. If you look at earth, what are the 7 boundaries? Anybody can say these are nothing but 7 continents. So the 7 continents got created on the earth. Okay. Then Trisapta, 3 times 7, 3 and 7, 3 times 7, that is 21 types of fuels, samidhas, were used or made available. Now, many times people look at this Trisapta as just 21, and there they talk about, Pancha Prana, Pancha Mahabhuta, 5 sense organs, 5 organs of action, and so on and so forth, and they add it up somehow to 21. If Rishi wanted to say 21, they would have said 21. They did not say 21, they said 3 times 7. That means there were 3 groups of energies, and each group had 7 types of energies that are made available. What are those? Again, we will not go into details of that right now. You can read my book in which it is elaborated. But basically, 3 groups of energies are available even today. The energy that we get from sun it has 7 different components. So that itself is one set, right? But there are 3 such sets that constitute towards nourishment of the earth, without which the earth cannot exist. The last part, it says, Abadnan Purusham Pashum. This again gets interpreted, or rather misinterpreted, that the Pashu was sacrificed. And people again start talking that, okay, your scriptures talk about Pashu Bali or animal sacrifice and things like that, which is absolutely not true. Because in this mantra, the earth is being formed. There is no life on the earth yet. That comes in next mantra. So if there is no life, there is no Pashu created, how will somebody sacrifice the Pashu? Secondly, it says abadnan. It doesn't say sacrifice. It says abadnan means set free. Now the Pashu here itself is nothing but the part of the Purusha. So that is what it is talking about. It has nothing to do with Pashu or Pashubali or any such aspect. Again, so many misinterpretations lead to a lot of confusion. Then I will just cover one more mantra because it creates or leads to a lot of misinterpretations. Okay, this 12th mantra asks a question that if this was created by a Purusha, and if I perceive this Purusha in the form of human body, what happened to different parts of that body? what came out of his head, what came out of his mouth, what came out of his arms and thighs and legs, and so on and so forth. Right? And from 13th and 14th and 15th mantra describe what happened to different parts of, if we perceive that in the form of human, what happened to different body parts, what came about from those body parts. And the first mantra says, Brahmanosya mukhamasit bahu rajanyah kritah uru tadasya yad vaishyah padbhyagam shudro ajayata. Now, here this again gets interpreted as a chaturvarnya. And people say that, okay, your scriptures promote caste system. First of all, this is chaturvarnya. It has nothing to do with casteism. Okay, casteism is a different concept. Varna vyavastha is a different concept. But even in that context, in this mantra, the earth is still being created, the society is being formed. So there is no question of grouping the society. This is not talking about humans' classification. This is talking about some important functions, some important aspects of life on the earth. What does also, this does not talk anything about any kind of hierarchy. It does not say that Brahmins are superior and Shudras are inferior. Nothing like that is ever described in any scripture. Okay, it is later on interpreted and then misused by different organizations by their benefit. But it is not part of our scriptures. It is not part of our roots, not part of our culture either. Okay, so coming back, it says Brahmanosya mukhamasit. Mukha is mouth. It says from the mouth of that Purusha, Brahmans came. Now, what does Brahman means? Brahman means knowledge, people who focus on gaining knowledge. Now, when Purusha created life on the earth, it instilled a mechanism in every creature which will help it acquire knowledge. And that aspect of or ability of acquiring knowledge is indicated through this word Brahman here. So every living organism on the earth has ability to acquire knowledge. That ability was instilled, that ability was created as a part of the creation process itself. The second ability that was instilled is ability to defend or protect itself. Even, the smallest of smallest organisms, even small insects, anything, it has ability to protect itself, at least to a certain degree. If there is some trouble, it will run away from it or fight with it, things like that. So that ability is indicated by Rajanya, or Rajanya also means Kshatriya attribute. The ability to fight, the physical strength was given to every organism, which is indicated by Kshatriya attribute. The third is Vaishya, Uru Tadasya Yad Vaishya. Vaishya indicates ability to accumulate. Traditionally, or later on when the Chatur Varna system was created, Vaishyas are people who accumulate wealth. But Vaishya indicates ability to accumulate. Now, if every living being again has ability to accumulate something. What something? For example, when we eat food, we accumulate that food, slowly digest it, store that energy, and consume that energy in different activities. So this ability of accumulating, the holding, the storing is indicated by Vaishya. Again, the reason this cannot be Chaturvarnya is because this explanation continues in next mantra and it talks about different other body parts. Okay, which do not use any aspect of Chaturvarnya system. So these words, these concepts, these terms were introduced much earlier. And later on, when the society was created, similar or same terms were used to indicate different functions in the society to form the Chaturvarnya system or the Varna Vyavastha. But by no means any scripture or any Vedic scripture definitely talks about Chaturvarnya or promotes Chaturvarnya or promotes hierarchy within the society. That came much later. So in the interest of time, we'll just stop here. We'll just recap. So Purusha Sukta, as we talked about, it describes the entire process in sequential manner of creation or manifestation of the universe through the process of yajna. Lot of modern theories that are available and accepted today are already described in the Purusha Sukta. Okay, and the rishis understood this entire process and they revealed that knowledge in the form of Veda. Now, as I said, in the interest of time, we covered just few mantras, but there is a book available which goes through every single mantra, provides lot more explanation, lot more details about this entire process. All these mantras, we discussed just 4 or 5 mantras, but all the mantras, their detailed explanation is available in this book. You can note the URL or you can look up on Amazon or just a Google search will give you this book. And I'll encourage, not for the sake of promoting the book, but for the sake of understanding. We want to know what this knowledge is and what it really means. So in that context, I'll encourage all of you to go through this book. And again, I have given some of my mechanisms to contact. Read the book and come back with your questions. Let's have discussion. Let's chat. Let's explore more possibilities. But with that, I'll pause here and let's look at some of the questions. So, Ojaswiji, if you can facilitate questions, that would be great.
So one of the questions that were asked is that since like in one of the mantras you said that the 7 boundaries talk about the 7 continents, so does that help us date the Purush Sukta? Because it clearly happened, so it doesn't talk about the entire concept of Pangea and it doesn't consider that. So that means that this would be a great marker at dating the Purush Sukta correctly.
Well, dating Purusha Sukta and dating Earth are 2 different things, right? That will help us dating of the Earth, not the Purusha Sukta itself. Again, the important thing is our belief says that these Veda existed along with the universe or along with the Purusha. So they already existed even before the universe was formed or even before the Earth was formed. The Veda already existed. Those were revealed by different rishis at different times. And the dating talks about when those probably were revealed.
Another question that is being asked is that this particular mantra, which has been used oftentimes to misrepresent, as you said, and shown as evidence for casteism, where exactly can we see, or in which yagnas exactly can we see the chanting of this particular line? Because oftentimes during Abhishekam, when the pujaris are taking the aarti with the thali, they start with the feet and then they go up, right? So when exactly do we see the chanting of that mantra?
So Purusha Sukta chanting is throughout the puja, throughout the ritual. And there are 2 different ways people chant the entire Sukta. Or in Shodashopachar Puja, the Sukta has 16 mantras. So in every 16 of those steps in a puja, each mantra is used, one for each step. And the other thing, if I go back, the 13th mantra talks about Brahman and Mukha, arms and Kshatriya and so on. But then it continues, it doesn't stop here. If it was Chaturvarnya, then it would stop here. 4 varnas are described as 4 different body parts. It continues about mind, eyes, the mukha again, then the breathing or the nose, then it talks about Nabhi, then it talks about the head, then it talks about legs. And so it is not just talking about the society classification. It is just taking entire Purusha and different aspects that different body parts represent. That's a great question.
So I think this brings us to the last question, which is saying that since Pashubali, as you said, cannot be said to have started with the mantras within the Purush Sukta, However, we do see Pashu Bali being a reality. We do see that within Tantra Puja that this kind of Bali is important and in several cases encouraged, so that whatever wishes or our wishes to be close to the deity can hence be realized. So, if not from the Purusha Sukta, then where has this Pashu Bali come from? Is it the basis of a misrepresentation of Purush Sukta or another text that encourages it?
Very good question. Whoever asked this, thanks for this question. So we have to understand that there are different aspects in the society. Okay, one, even dharma or religion is not the right translation, but for the sake of discussion, the religion is one aspect, the rituals is different aspect, society is yet different aspect. So things evolve over a period of time in different ways. Certain things either are misinterpreted, certain things become tradition that somebody else started. But if you look at pure Vedic literature, there is no mention of sacrifice of a life in a form of human or animal or anything. Yes, eventually, I'll give you one example of how different rituals start and how those get interpreted. So it's just a story, but there was a saint or a swami who used to perform certain puja in the evening. Every day evening he would perform a puja. Now he did not have big ashram or anything, so he had a place outside his hut where he used to perform that water ritual. In the evening, it used to be a little windy. The wind used to be from west in the evening. So he put, yeah, of course, he was just a small sadhu kind of a person. He didn't have too many things. So he stuck two sticks in the ground and put an orange cloth that he had around it to protect that activity from wind. So they blocked the wind and his activities continued. Eventually, that sadhu passed on, and his disciple did not realize why he was doing it, and his entire lineage started a process that when you perform this activity, you have to put a orange saffron colored cloth on the waist. Now later on, even when they moved those kind of yajnas indoors, they still had that tradition of putting that cloth on the waist. So that is how, unfortunately, a lot of ritualistic aspects start. It was done by somebody for some practical reason or purpose. That purpose gets lost and it is followed as a tradition. And Pashubali probably is one such activity or one such tradition that evolved over a period of time.
So another question has been asked is that it says that the Purush Sukta talks about energies. There are different kinds of energies, and this is not just the vague concept of energies, but the different types, whether it is electromagnetic or other kinds of energies, they have been mentioned in the mantras, and you can actually translate those mantras and understand the different types of energies that were recognized within that particular sukta. So, what are those energies that we can come to the conclusion was already recognized under the sukta?
Yes. So there is, of course, electricity. There is electromagnetic waves, ultraviolet, infrared, uh, light. And also there is a mention of one energy called Manojava. And Manojava is the energy that travels at the speed of mind. That's what it means. But it means it is the energy that travels faster than light. And so far, the science did not accept of any such existence of any such aspect. But now they have realized and accepted. They have not understood it yet, probably, but they have accepted that there is something that travels faster than light. And all those things are mentioned. And in Mundak or Mandukya Upanishad, one of those Upanishads talks clearly about all those types of energies.
I think that brings us to the end of the question and answer session, sir. Thank you very much for a very interactive and a very simplified talk on an otherwise complex topic. You truly did demystify our understanding of the Purush Sukta. which can be a little hard because it's a part of the Rig Veda and it is a very old text. I look forward to having more such sessions with you, sir. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Absolutely.